Okay, it's 1:07. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We may have some other people join us. I don't know. Now it's just me. So we are meeting to read some of this. Tonight is going to be Proverbs 1 and 2. And I have 3 different versions of this. So one is from a little box set I have that just has a bunch of cards called Tao box. So I'll show that to you in a little bit, not right now though. And of course, the main book right here. And then I also have this book called The Essential Tao. See that? Thomas Cleary. And so that's where we're going to be reading these from. One, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things. Ever desireless, one can see mystery. Ever desiring, one can see the manifestations. These two spring from the same source but differ in name. This appears as darkness, darkness within darkness, the gate to all mystery. So let's put that aside for now, and we will pick up the next translation from the Tao box. It's going to be a slightly different tradition. It's number 1 still. That's what the outside looks like. That's what the words look like. Sorry, it's not a very good camera. So number 1, this one actually comes with a title called Marking Out the Path. The Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. Any name which can be given to it is not its true name. That which has before heaven and earth is Tao. Tao is the mother of all things. The wise seek its mystery and find it made of opposites. Opposites arise from the same source and are identical in all but name. The mystery of opposites is so profound, to understand it is to open the door of Tao. Wow, that seems really, really different to me. Like, super different. But it says number 1 on there, so. I mean, spoken, told, I guess there's some similarities. Let's see what translation number 3 has to say. So that's this one. The Essential Tao. Number 1. This one also has a title, which is A Way Can Be a Guide. So totally different titles too. A way can be a guide, but not a fixed path. Names can be given, but not permanent labels. Non-being is called the beginning of heaven and earth. Being is called the mother of all things. Always passionless, thereby observe the subtle. Ever intent, thereby observe the apparent. These two come from the same source, but differ in name. Both are considered mysteries. The mystery of mysteries is the gateway of marvels. Well, I can tell you right off the bat, this third one makes way more sense than the other two for me, personally. So this is where I would ask if anybody else has a different translation that they'd like to share. But unfortunately, it's just me, so that's all I have to share. This is really silly. I'm sorry. It's really silly doing this all by myself. But I want to have these out there, so. Okay. So they all kind of start with this naming thing. I mean, they don't really start, this other one doesn't really start. They'd start with a way can be a guide. But the other two do start about this thing that can be named is not what we're talking about. So if it can be named, then it's not what we're talking about. I'm going to keep on track because we only have until 7:30 before we move on to Proverbs number 2. So they both talk about the Tao. So the translation of the Tao is the way. So think about it as like a path. I really like the idea of a path because we all have our own path in life. So the path that can be told, or maybe even the story, you can even say the story that can be told is not the eternal story, or it's not the eternal path. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. So that can almost be like considered like God or love or the creator. So I think that's why this third translation really speaks to me a whole lot more, because it says a way, which is the Tao, can be a guide, but not a fixed path. Names can be given, but not permanent labels. I mean, that just makes so much more sense to me, especially when we come to Buddhism or Taoism. They're all, even Toltechism, if you call it Toltecism, and Nagualism, the Toltec spirituality, they're all about not labeling things, because that's of the tonal. So to be of the Nagual or to be of the Tao would be the nameless. I know this is more about Tao Te Ching, but the Soul Church we're very eclectic. We take all this information in and use it to, I wouldn't even say spread or preach, because that's not what we're about either, but to just let people know about this information. I call it universal truths, and that's what we're about, universal love. So these are kind of universal truths, and they're the same truths that run throughout all different religions. So the Soul Church is not about religion, it's about spirituality. So the way, or this path of love, or this, you can even call it the path of service. Like if we're going to be talking about like A Course in Miracles, or if we're going to talk about the Law of One, it's all the same thing. That is the Tao. That is the path. That is the way. That's the universal truth. So, I was talking about Toltecism or Nagualism. So the Nagual is considered the unknowable. Oh, there's somebody joining. There we go. And admit. Okay. Hi. I'm not sure what's going on there, but Elon has joined us.
Good afternoon.
So I was just talking about, well, we read the 3 translations of Proverb number 1. So I was just talking about how the Tao is kind of, and I talked a little bit about the soul church and what it's about, but how the Tao is like the path or kind of a universal truth, and our love. It's kind of like, well, for those people who've read The Law of One, it's the law of one. It's can also be considered love or God in a way, but it's more like the path of service, is the way I'd put it, when it comes to serving a higher purpose. That's what I would kind of translate the Tao as being.
That's okay. So serving a higher purpose. It's a little. My understanding has been a little different lately, and for all I know, it'll be even more different in another month or two. But even so, what I've been realizing lately is the majority of our suffering comes from our concept of object and subject, right? We create a division. So even the idea of service creates that same division of object and subject. It creates the idea that there's something to serve, that there's a separation between that being the one doing the serving and the one being served.
I hear you there, but that's why I put it in other words. It's kind of like, how about this? Instead of service to high being, how about just a calling? Does that sit better with?
Or more like a remembering, not a remembering. I don't even know how to.
See, I like it just called the path, the way, because
Yes, the way. Because that implies that you're taking the perfect action for every moment without effort.
Exactly. So that's why I like to call it the path or the way, or and I think you're getting hung up in what they call it, either semantics or syntax. I can't remember, but
Or both, probably. Yeah.
Just focusing. So being of service is pretty much what the way I kind of translate that is being open to possibilities. So being able to hear spirit, or whatever you want to call it, or love or whatever, so that you know the right path to go down. And it's basically being open to and non-judgmental. So this is exactly what it says here, and that's why I like this translation so much better.
I mean, I'm literally holding the thing in my hand right now. This is it used to be a keychain hanger, and it says, "If you want to find God, serve man." So I don't want to diminish. Yeah, I wish I could take a picture and send this to you.
Well, so what I was about to say is that's why I like this translation better, because it talks about not permanent labels. So this is talking about labels, and this speaks to me so much more because it seems a lot more modern, and this is going off about, it's the name that cannot be named. But this is like a way, or the Tao, if you want to translate it that way, it can be a guide, but not a fixed path. Just like you were saying, it's not like fate. It's not, we're not fixed to this path, but it is a path. Names can be given, which is what we were just saying. We're trying to give this thing the name, a name, but not permanent labels. So so they're saying it's changeable in a way. And so this is exactly what I was talking about. I was talking about Nagwalism. So the Nagwal is like the unknowable, or no, it's the unknown. Okay, so the tonal is the known, the Nagual is the unknown, and then there's this third kind of layer that's like the unknowable. And I believe the way is more of the unknown. So, but it kind of edges on the unknowable. It kind of touches that. It's kind of in between those two.
It's so funny. That's Kabbalah too. In Kabbalah, they have Ein Sof and Ein Sof All, and the third one is like pre-Big Bang type consciousness, like when everything was still one little dot before the initial expansion.
See, that's why I really think you should look into the Law of One, because they talk about that. They talk about the beginning of all this, like before the Big Bang, and how love consciousness came into being. It's really good stuff. So anyhow, so they're basically talking about this way or this path. It's not set in stone, and it verges on the unknowable, and unknown. Right now it's unknown, but it can be known.
Yes, and that, I guess that's the point of the church, right? What is the path to knowing?
Well, it's more of like, what is the path to the unknown, or maybe bridging the path to the unknown from the known. So non-being is that state, that's the unknowable. That was the beginning of heaven and earth. That was before consciousness as we know it existed. That's so another way of saying it, that's actually like after death. That's like heaven in a way, because that's when we go back to source, when we go back to the all. So that's non-being. But while we're here, being in the physical is called the mother of all things. I find that interesting because, again, I'm going to link back to the Law of One, where, you know, they really stress that we're all connected. And one of my meditations is that I actually use that same thing, mother of 10,000 things, is what they say in this original one, I think. Yeah, the mother of 10,000 things. So when I do my meditation, after I ground myself by connecting to the earth and our Earth Mother and Sky Father, and come into my being, then as I breathe in, I feel the 10,000 things I'm connected to. And as I breathe out, I feel the 10,000 things I'm connected to. And I try to focus on only letting in the loving, positive things, but to acknowledge the fact that I am still part of all these 10,000 things. All these states of being are all experiencing the same thing I am. We're all here in this level of awareness and this state of being. So, and again, with the Law of One, they talk about that a lot in these different states of being. So that's breaking down the being part. So the next one is always passionless. I don't really like that word, passionless. What does that mean? That's be like ennui, or is that more of a numbness?
No, it's lack of attachment. That's not interpreted right. It's not passionless. It's attached, not attached.
Okay, so I would do that. Always unattached, because I like that a lot better. Unattached. Thereby observe the subtle. So, I love that. And let me do the next line. Ever intent, which I think we should find a better word for that. Intent is like focused, I guess. Thereby observe the apparent, which conspicuous, I guess. So I think that's saying this goes back again to novelism or the Toltec spirituality, is they talk about this a lot. There's so many connections between the Tao and novelism. It's just, this is like one of the huge things. So they talk about being disconnected. They talk about not taking things personally. They talk about the state of unattachedness, like you're talking about.
I mean, we'll get into this in some of the later verses, but they talk a lot about do your work without any need for acknowledgement. Do your work without any attachment to results. It's just being present and providing what now needs. That gets you on the path.
That's the term now, right? Mindfulness. So to be mindful. Or maybe that's the one below it. So yeah, exactly. So when they talk about this in novelism, they talk about to be unattached to this thing. You can observe. That's the state of awareness that you're trying to achieve as a man of knowledge or a sorcerer. Is that it takes constant vigilance, is what they always say. But when you are intent or when you are focusing, it brings you into, I guess, a higher state of intellect, but you're still unattached. So they're kind of saying the same thing. I think observe the apparent. So observe the subtle when you're unattached, but when you're focused, observe what's obviously there.
Well, and observe what's, I think, maybe causing the attachment. So I've been understanding this very differently lately. And what I'm understanding now is that you are the thing that you're looking for. But we agree to forget what and who we are. That's part of taking on a physical body. Is apparently there's this agreement that we make pre-consciousness where we go, okay, so the cost for taking on a physical body, the cost for being able to experience this universe is you can't remember where you came from. Eventually you can remind yourself, but that knowledge is taken from you upon incarnation.
So what do you think the apparent is?
The apparent is, okay, can you read the line again, the whole line? I want to make sure I'm not misinterpreting.
Your words, though, always unattached, thereby observe the subtle, or you can even say there, kind of the hidden, ever intent or ever focused, thereby observe the apparent or the conspicuous.
I don't like that interpretation. It's like it's trying to impose that Western dichotomy on something that is not duplicitous.
But I mean, the original translation is this. It's saying almost the exact same thing. Ever desireless. One can see the mystery. One can see the hidden. Ever desiring, one can see the manifestations, which is
yes. Okay. So, what's a good analogy? So Rupert Spira, first, I got to start sending you that guy. He is, I can't even explain to you what he's done for me recently. But the analogy he gives is, it's like a movie screen and the movie that plays upon it. No matter what plays upon the screen, that doesn't change the screen. But we get so caught up in the movie that we experience all these things and all these emotions, and we forget that there's a thing behind it. There's a fundamental thing that no matter what happens, does not change. The first is being aware of the screen, the canvas on which manifestation occurs. The second is getting caught up in the movie. So your desire is what allows you to get lost in the emotion and not see that ultimately everything that's happening on the screen is irrelevant because the screen itself is always there. Did that make sense?
Sounds like
what?
The Work by Byron something or other. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
work. She talks a lot about that. I mean, that's what the work is all about. It's all about just recognizing that what's going on in your head, the emotions you're feeling is all just this story. It's all just this movie playing for you.
Yes.
And not actually observing what's really going on, and that we all have our own movies. So, okay, well, we're over time on this first proverb, so let's just try to finish up these last four.
Okay. The last thing I'll add is, so the way that they deal with it is they ask a very simple question, and that is, who is observing? And that's what takes you out of getting attached to the moment-to-moment events, to what's happening on the screen, and start realizing there's an immortal presence, an eternal presence behind all of that. That is the one that is aware. That's the part within ourselves that has awareness.
Or as some mindfulness people say, or even the Nagualism say, the silent watcher. Like Eckhart Tolle,
Yes.
the silent watcher.
Yes.
Yeah. So who's doing the watching, right? Okay.
Yes.
These two come from the same source, but differ in name. Both are considered mysteries. So I think they're saying these two, when they talk about these two, they're saying the watcher and the silent watcher, or the id and the ego, right? If you're gonna use the psychology terms. Is it the id and the ego? I think so.
Yeah.
So they both come from the same source. They're both part of the Tao. They're both part of this path we're on. So it's the mysteries of mysteries, is the gateway of marvels. So here they're like, this one says, the darkness within darkness, the gate to all mystery. And this one's just kind of worthless. I don't even want to go there. So I don't like that translation at all. At least these two kind of coincide.
These two what?
I said these two kind of coincide. This one out of the deck of cards thing, that I don't think it really. I don't like the translation at all. So they said to understand it is to open the door of the Tao. But the thing is there is no door to open to Tao. And it's always here. It's always with us. There's no door to open.
Yes, I agree with you. It's more of a recognition than an action.
Exactly. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to proverb number 2. And I'll read from this one first, and then the card, and then this third translation. So, 2. Under heaven, all can see beauty as beauty only, because there is no ugliness. Because there is ugliness. Sorry. All can know good as good only, because there is evil. Therefore, having and not having arise together. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short contrast each other. High and low rest upon each other. Voice and sound harmonize each other. Front and back follow one another. Therefore, the sage goes about doing nothing, teaching, no talking. The 10,000 things rise and fall without cease. Creating, yet not possessing. Working, yet not taking credit. There you go.
Yeah.
Work is done, then forgotten. Therefore, it lasts forever. Now, don't comment yet. We still have a couple more translations to go through. Marking out. Oh, that was the first one. Opposites. I really don't like these cards. But anyhow, when one speaks of beauty as being beautiful, ugliness is at once defined. When goodness is seen to be good, evil is at once apparent. So having and not having mutually give rise to one another, as do difficulty and ease, far and near, high and low. This is only half of that. they've only translated half in that card. I'm gonna have to look in those cards a little bit more. I think they broke them up a little bit differently. So number 2 in this book is titled Everyone Knows. When everyone knows beauty is beauty, this is bad. When everyone knows good is good, this is not good. So being and non-being produce each other. Difficulty and ease complement each other. Long and short shape each other. High and low contrast with each other. Voice and echoes conform to each other. Before and after go along with each other. So sages manage effortless service and carry out unspoken guidance. All beings work without exception if they live without possessiveness, act without presumption, and do not dwell on success. Then by this very non-dwelling, success will not leave. These are very different translations, but I do see how they're saying the same thing. And by the way, this number 2 proverb is pretty much exactly what that painting I gave you is.
Yes, the candles, yeah.
It is called The Meaning of Life. Because, yeah, I mean, that's
the crazy thing is, I don't know if you ever read any of the Lost Gospels, but there's one of the Lost Gospels actually almost says the same thing. Almost verbatim. Kabbalah says the same thing.
Yeah, so this is all about what you were saying earlier, separation, which is straight out of A Course in Miracles. That's what the foundation of A Course in Miracles is all about, is this idea of separation and why we came into being. It's kind of pretty much why that whole book was written. It's thousands of pages that it is all about this idea of separation and why we went through this separation. I say we because it's really just, you can almost say why I went through this separation, because it's kind of the same thing. We and I, if you're talking along that concept. But it's exactly what they say, like that candle, to know yourself, you have to have the opposite. So for light to know light, it has to be in darkness. And that's exactly what this is saying. Having and not having arise together. You can't know one without the opposite. You only know beauty because there is ugliness. You only know good because there is evil. And this one's pretty self-explanatory on that part. But I think what we should focus on is about this doing nothing and teaching no talking, or as they put it here, which I like a little bit better, the sages manage effortless service. Now, if you're going to go through this idea of service, I know you don't like, but that's really what teaching is. I mean, and that's what we're offering as the Soul Church to give these teachings. It's our service. We're given this knowledge, and we're given it so that we can give it. No,
and it's not. And I don't actually disagree with service. How do I say this? I think that's actually a very natural state of being for us, but it's been through interpretation turned into this thing that's almost like an inconvenience or a hassle, or it's like something we do to gain brownie points with the universe or some cosmic force, rather than just something that's just inherent to us. Well, we are most happy, I think, when we're in service.
I think you're saying we is more of a secular kind of modern we,
Oh yes.
That's not how I view service at all. I feel like, to me, definitely like with A Course in Miracles or A Course in Love, it's all about following your heart. It's all about just sharing knowledge. I mean, that's why I don't believe in charging for anything like this. And I get You know how you already. I don't need to talk about this with you because you already know how I feel about charging money. It should be free to everybody. I just really chapped my ass when I pay for stupid seminars and stuff.
No, I know.
Free for everybody.
So just on this little side rant real quick, that's another reason that I've completely fallen in love with Rupert Spira was I went to his website because I was curious about his online webinars, and he does have a sliding scale. So the $500 course you can actually go to for $30. But with that said, I think the other but the other reason that I don't like the idea of the other reason I think the idea of service has been misinterpreted is because of the illusion of separation. So in other words, there's this illusion that I'm separate from the person that I'm helping. So that's where service comes in. If I understand we're one entity, I'm not doing anything for anyone. We're the same person. So my service to others is my service to myself. And then it just becomes just love. Then love guides every action.
Amen.
Tell me, sister. Tell me.
So the teachers, and let's just put it that way, instead of saying sages, because sages is kind of, people don't use that term much anymore, and I really think it's teachers there. So teachers manage effortless service and carry out unspoken guidance. And I think the way we should translate that, or really take that to heart, this unspoken guidance is just living the way you should, as far as, like, I don't want to say you should, but living the way, living the way.
Yes.
Living the way.
Well, and that's part of what's so difficult in comprehending this stuff is people always want a process. They want a system. And that's the problem with the Tao. There is no way, there is no system. Every moment is unique and requires
a decision.
Yes, not even a decision, but a yielding, a decision, a giving in to what that moment requires, and not using anything in the past to determine what needs to happen right now.
Exactly, living in the moment, and don't let your internal stories guide you. Let your spirit or your heart or day guide you.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what the unspoken guidance is. It's just living the way.
You've actually you've said something to me before. It's forgetting your history or
personal history. Yes, that's a novelist thing. So, or Toltec.
I think that's an essential part of being on the path is forgetting your own history, letting go of your own history.
Personal history is the way they say it. So, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all about, I struggled with that so long when I was seriously studying novelism, was erasing personal history. I'm like, well, how do you erase personal history? But it's really just about not letting personal history drag you down or drag you to the past. You still have personal history. We all came from a mother. We all have a family. We all have, places we've been. But it's just not letting that tie you down or letting it stick you to a certain energy configuration. So.
And also not letting yourself assume you know a thing because of past experience. There's so many times where we encounter a situation or a person or whatever it might be, and we never look at it. It's always through the filter of what past experience has told us. So we never see a thing for what it actually is.
That's exactly what prejudice is.
Yeah.
And it just takes years and years of practice, because that's what our brain is made to do. It's what it's made to do. It's made,
and that's why
recognize patterns and say, oh, okay, I already recognize the pattern, so I don't need to spend any time on it. It's already this from the past. That's what we're wired to do. So yes, it takes immense effort, or as Don Juan would say, constant vigilance to stop yourself from doing that. It's a whole retraining of your brain and rewiring your neural pathways. So there's, so much out here. I really wish other people were on this call.
I know.
Like,
but it's funny because now we're going to go back to the first one. that's why the Tao that can be spoken of is not the Tao, because the minute you start attaching words, you start attaching experience, and you're not experiencing it for what it is.
Exactly. So it's going on, that goes right into the next couple of lines, which is, all beings work without exception if they live without possessiveness, act without presumption, right on the money right there, and do not dwell on success, then by this very non-dwelling, success will not leave, or basically you achieve success. Because what are you trying to achieve success for? If you don't have any goal, if you're just living in the moment, it's automatically going to be a success. And so it's the same idea, the Taoist idea about having nothing is everything, because you have, there's nothing to expect, and there's nothing to miss when it's gone, and everything is a gift because you have nothing. So.
And it also, that's a big one, because then you're also not, we never actually experience a moment. It's always this place we want to get to and where we've been. And success is a huge one, because that stops you from experiencing what you have in front of you. Wait, I need to achieve this thing. So inherently, you're telling your brain that what you're going through now means nothing, because you can't have happiness until you achieve this thing. So you're overlooking the unconditional joy and bliss that's you.
Oh. So I recently just picked up this book, because there's a meetup group, of all things, for this book study called Emergent Strategy. And I would have to go get the book, but maybe I can put it in the notes or something. But so it's all about that. It's at least, I don't know, the little bit I've read kind of touches on that. So I haven't finished reading. I've just barely started it, so I can't really speak to it too much. But from what it touts, it says that it's all about, like true mindfulness, and really trying to break down what the patterns our mind is kind of running us through. Oh, there he is. Yay! So just how our brain works to try to establish these patterns, and to break yourself of that, the pattern of patterns, I guess is the best way of saying it.
My God, if I'm honest, I'm trying to think how many times in a day I can actually say that I've approached a situation without bringing experience into it. How many times in a day do I deal with a person or situation or whatever it might be without bringing past experience into it? It's funny because I was listening. So Krishnamurti is the other guy I really got to start sending you videos on, and that's his biggest thing. His biggest thing is, as soon as you drop all your preconceived notions, and what you're left with is what you actually are. So as soon as you can drop your patterns and your beliefs and your behaviors, well, then this magical things happens. All of a sudden you find yourself, which is buried underneath all this garbage that, we're taught or forced to deal with or take on, or use to protect ourselves from abuse, or, And he does say the same thing. It takes extraordinary effort, and then all of a sudden it can happen in a moment. So it's like you put all this effort, and then all of a sudden you're just, in an instant, you find yourself in a different place.
Well, I do have to tell you, I've had leaps and bounds recently by just letting stuff go. Just kind of being more mindful of my emotions and not letting them run away with me. So, if my husband tries to get under my skin, I laugh it off. Kind of, he kind of gets more upset at that, but
yeah.
But oftentimes I just let it go, and I think that might be more of a defense mechanism and not really what we're talking about, but it's been working okay for now. And I
Yes.
can't say I really go numb, but I just kind of let it pass. I'm just like, okay, that's how you feel. I just kind of, recognize that's how he feels.
Yes. Yes.
Let it get under my
And
skin.
then even more fascinating. So it's interesting. You're recognizing just because it's a defense mechanism doesn't mean it's not the appropriate action. But the more interesting question is, what's motivating him? Like what in his mind? There's a reason that he's trying to get under your skin, right? There's a reaction he's looking for. There's energy he's trying to get from you, and he hasn't figured out another way to do it. So that's his. Well, this will get a reaction out of her. It may not be a positive one, but it's a reaction, and then therefore there's an exchange of energy.
Eckhart Tolle has so much to say about that. I know we both don't.
Wisdom is wisdom, no matter where it comes
Got
from.
him as a
Yeah.
person, but he does have some pretty good things to say, and he talks a lot about the pain body and just how exactly how those pain bodies feed off of each other, and there's actually this energy exchange, and that's what they crave, and that's why they act out the way that they do. It's almost like having our own inner demons is the best way I think of looking at it.
Yes. Yes.
And the kind of our own little inner demons are also succubuses, or let's see, there's succubi, and what are the other ones? Imps or something, I don't know. the male version of succubi.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Incubuses.
huh?
Incubus? No, I'm making that up.
You're close. No, it is close.
Yeah.
Incubus. Ah, that's it.
Incubus. Yeah. Yeah.
Incubus and succubus. Incubi and succubus.
And well, and the trick is, so I think it was Krishnamurti also. At one of the they asked him like what when he was passing. I hope I'm getting the story right. But when he was passing, they basically asked him like, what is your final imparting knowledge? Like, what's the last thing you want to share with your students? And I don't think many people understood this, but his answer was, I don't mind what happens. Meaning, I don't mind what happens. I don't mind if I have money, if I don't have money. I don't mind if you're yelling at me, if you're not yelling at me. I don't mind if the world's on fire or if it's perfectly peaceful, because he's connected to something far beyond what our limited perception is able to comprehend at the moment. It's our attachment, and that's back to the attachment thing. It's our attachment that demands things play out a certain way, or that we get a particular result.
Okay, but now I would like to point out here about the whole idea of numbness, which we touched on our earlier phone conversation. And I don't think what we're talking about, this idea of being unattached, should not be numbness, because then you're missing out on the joy of life, and you're missing out on a lot like Don Juan says, the mystery of life, the wonder of life. And it's that kind of being in the now. What Taoism talks about is the uncarved block. We haven't gotten to that yet, but that's what the whole idea of the uncarved block is where you don't have these preconceptions. And so that you're going into a moment, even if it may be a bad moment, it's still wondrous. You're just seeing it from this different perspective that has no attachments. It's uncarved. It's like a baby going into this experience. Every experience is wonderful because it's new. Instead of your mind just suddenly saying, well, we've seen this before and this is how it's like, no, we haven't seen this before. We've seen nothing before, and let's just take it as it comes and give your body, it's really a whole body experience when you experience that sense of newness and wonder. It's like, let's give our whole being,
Yes. I was going to say almost like a multi-body experience. It's like your astral and your emotional and all your bodies. And no, numbness is the exact opposite, actually.
Yeah, it's
numbness is
experiencing it brand new, like for the first every moment, everything that happens from your way is new. And wish I was back there again, but I'm not. So
yes, but you will be again. But and so now numbness, let's define as the opposite. Numbness is not being willing to experience anything.
Yeah, it's just
numbness is containing so much pain that you've shut off. Exactly.
Well, we got 2 minutes, so I think we're just wrapping up.